17.
Ooh.
So we've
We're here.
we've stuck around.
I
But
feel like I've been here a long time.
yeah, that's kind of the effects of hanging out with us, I suppose. But yeah, man. So opening remarks, Jim. How's the world treating you? What's on your mind? What's before we get into some other things? What's going on?
You know, the world is treating me okay because I'm a couple of days away from a vacation, and vacation has become a little bit of a foreign concept nowadays for people who, I don't know, it's really not a whole lot to celebrate.
How do you feel about travel in general right now?
Well, fortunately, the travel that we're going to be doing is we're going to be driving. So
okay,
we're going to be driving down to South Padre and not go to the beach.
So you're not going to have to sit next to Ted Cruz on a plane without him wearing a mask.
I would actually enjoy sitting next to Ted Cruz on an airplane. I think. Oh yeah, I would make it very difficult.
Okay. I was about to say
that's the kind of stuff I live for.
I was about to say that's. I would hope that's what you would say, Sean. What's new, man? What's going on? You're always the optimistic guy.
Yeah, I'm optimistic, but today I don't know if I'm feeling it, man. This is I went to my closet. And I realized that I do have pants in there. I haven't worn pants since I've been to work. That was back in March. And so I put pants on, but pants in 98-degree weather doesn't really go hand in hand. So I'm kind of suffering over here.
I did notice you rocked the pants today.
Yeah, it was something, right?
So when you came out of the closet, what happened then?
Well, I immediately regretted it. So
yeah, you got to keep that sometimes to yourself.
But speaking of work, kind of for my opening statement, I wanted to kind of bounce this off of y'all, and it's a conversation that I wish we were kind of having it a little bit more, especially during this time. But I really thought that this is a good time for us to start talking about a legitimate shift into like a possible 4-day work week. So I just wanted to get a really, really brief takes on what y'all's early thoughts on something like to me, it's kind of like if not now, then when, if we were going to have a conversation like this. But just y'all's general thoughts. Maybe you can use your own personal job. What do you think, Jim? 4-day work week.
I'm absolutely not opposed to a 4-day work week if you work in the kind of industry where all you need is 40 hours of work out of somebody. But sometimes it has more to do with coverage over a certain period of time, so it might not be workable. But if all you need is 40 hours of work or 35 hours of work, doesn't have to be a 40-hour work week. Could be 35. I mean, let's shift there too.
I like that you bring that up because I would work 30. Like if they said, hey, well, you're not working as much, like 35 hours, like we're gonna cut your salary to like 90%. I'm okay with that. I'll take a little pay cut if I can get an extra day out of the week. Maybe work a little bit longer hours Monday through Thursday or whatever it is. Justin?
I like how it sounds in general. I agree with it in general. I just don't know if it could ever coexist with like the American live to work mentality. I just don't know if it ties in. But what you're talking about is very progressive and very cool. I don't know that the American corporations and companies that are so keen on exploitation, I don't know if they'll hop on board with that.
Maybe I'm just trying to hang out with you guys longer Thursday night, right? I don't know.
Maybe so, but remember
my heart.
4/10s and 5/8 is still 40 hours. So if you work 4/10s and you're the kind of guy who is chomping at the bit to get back in there for more work, go ahead and work that 5th day.
Yeah,
5/10s. That's a lot of dough
on the table for
Justin. That's a cool opening thought. Things on this end are still relatively awful, but I've got a few extra.
God bless you.
Yeah, got a few extra gems to like work with the kids, socially distanced, of course, small groups and that. But it's nice being able to work 3 or 4 days a week now instead of 1 or 2. So it's a small bright point. But guys, we have a sick show for you today. It's really objectively, I can tell you that it's awesome. We're talking what's going on in Portland right now. We've got some politics for you, but not the boring kind, and then some sports stuff. And then we're going to close out with, I guess, a top 2 or 3 list of guilty pleasures that we've had in the quarantine, or actually just in your life, that hopefully you guys can weigh in and decide who's got the funniest or most shameful list of the 3 of us. But jumping into the first one, guys, if you weren't aware, Portland has become just a madhouse. Apparently, there were protests. The protests there. So the Pacific Northwest is kind of known for protesting and civil disobedience and people demonstrating from all different sides, actually. And because of BLM protests and protests for racial justice, the police were originally handling it, that being local authorities. And now the Department of Homeland Security has come in, and with they call them federal officers, but for all intensive purposes, they are troops. They're outfitted with military gear. They are, and it's been brought to the national scale because people are being gassed, people are being shot at with projectiles, people are being beaten, and the narrative that we're hearing from the government is that it's this massive Homeland Security push and federal push to handle Antifa. And so it's been a huge week in Portland, and all eyes are on the city, so to speak, because on many different levels it's become a talking point. It's become there's a lot of room for debate on what these things mean, if it should be allowed or if it should not be allowed, and the nature of the protests and so forth. So I want to start off by just saying the police brutality and the things that we've been seeing on camera, it's not too dissimilar from what we've seen across the country a few weeks ago. But in this case, the fact that it's federal troops, I guess, is the largest thing. Federal authorities are coming in, even when the city itself, city of Portland and the state of Oregon, have expressed, that we don't need you, we don't want you here. And Chad Wolf, the acting DHS secretary, said basically, we don't care, we're here to do a job. So what first takes on that, and then we can get into some of the intricacies of the issue. But
I got you. I think it's very interesting, man. When I think about the Department of Homeland Security, my first thought always takes me back to its inception. I think of like Bush, a response to 9/11 and combating terrorism. The last thing that I think about is, a force that's used against U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. So that's troubling to say the least. But I think, to me, like the better question, or the bigger question, is: do you think that Trump is sending in federal troops to protect federal buildings and property, or do you think this is more so? Do you see it as a move in light of his failing polling numbers? Essentially, that's kind of one of the questions I had for you guys.
Jim,
that's a very good question. The explanation that we're getting from officials in DHS and the U.S. Marshals and what have you is that the intent is to protect federal courthouses, federal buildings from vandalism, including being set ablaze and burning them down. And their position is that if the police in Portland were doing their jobs, they wouldn't be there. That was their official position. If they were here, but they insist on not doing anything about it. So that's why we're here, and it's within our mandate, despite the fact that the Department of Homeland Security.
A quick question: how many federal buildings have been burned down by rioters?
Well, if you ask those guys, they're going to say none, because here we are.
Yeah.
Well, they responded initially because of graffiti. Really is what it was. And so it's not that shouldn't be addressed, but local authorities can handle that. And at the end of the day, it can be cleaned off. Does that mean that you gas American citizens? Does that mean that guys come in with that? I think it should be noted that they're coming in and these guys don't have badges exposed, that you can't identify them. And they've been not only using gas, not only using projectiles, not only beating protesters, which, I guess so far the most famous one that I've seen online has been a Navy veteran. Guy kind of stands his ground with his hands up, and they come up and bludgeon him with a baton, doesn't move, and then finally moves because he gets hit with mace from less than a foot away, right directly into his eyes. But those people and the wall of moms that has come out as well, to me, whenever you're attacked, these are the people you're attacking. These aren't just you can't say that you're fighting Antifa, you can't say that you're fighting looters. You're fighting against your own population. And my first thought, Oregon's a predominantly white state, and it's like this group of moms that's coming out there to shield protesters. If you're gassing middle class white mothers, what else? Where else do you go from there? I think it's directly a flex by the administration to try to play to his base, and they've threatened to move into other cities across the country. And so I think it's absolutely a political ploy, and we'll see how it plays out. But I think it's absolutely a political move.
I agree with you, and I will say that I've got some family in Portland, so I get a little bit of I guess a little bit of inside
Got
information.
some skin in the game.
And as far as
There we go.
and some skin in the game for sure. And as far as I can tell from the information I'm getting, by and large, it's very peaceful protesting. People just being people and giving, barbecuing and giving people who are hungry food with no charge. Just being neighborly. And then we have stories like the one you just described, where the very clearly peaceful. Didn't even appear to be protesting, just standing there.
Well, and I mean, one of the most disturbing things that I've seen, I guess, is that people are being thrown into unmarked vans and whisked away. And so it's not that there aren't unmarked police cars in the world. Like I understand that, but it's like whenever you have people that are dressed like soldiers, and federal authorities no less, arresting people and throwing them in the car. So they're not they're not being read their rights. They're not being told what they're being charged with. They're being grabbed, thrown into vans, and the vans speed away. And I don't think most Americans haven't seen anything like that before.
Yeah. Well, let me play devil's advocate here, not to be the voice of reason on this
You
podcast.
You fucking bootlicker.
Who
But
brought this guy?
but so I'm not going to argue with, like, I've heard some stories as far as, a crime could be something as simple as they describe it as like an incendiary device was thrown into a police cop car at a police cop car. It was probably a firework, to be honhonest, right? Might have been a little black cat.
It might have been
Probably
a cigarette
exactly
butt.
what it was.
It could have been a cigarette butt, because what is that?
It could have been a cigarette butt.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie. I might, if somebody did that to me in a neighborhood, I'd probably park my truck and get out and talk some shit or something, right? But we'd hope that the police have a little bit more thicker skin than that. But what about a lot of these rioters? Because I do want to differentiate between the people that are there to peacefully protest, like you were mentioning, Jim, and then those that are there to riot. How would you like the police to respond whenever those that are there for means of violence or destruction of property, when they commit these acts and then they go and hide amongst a peaceful crowd afterwards? Like, how else do you want police to, because they've already said, the DHS already came out and said, we're not going to go into a group of people and try to make an arrest, because that would be escalating a situation, and we're asking them to de-escalate situations. So I guess what I'm asking, like, if we're going to put ourselves in their shoes or their boots, how do you want them to respond to these rioters who are committing criminal acts?
I think there needs to be some proactive action ahead of time. They have to do something to prepare for that. If they're worried about federal buildings, for instance, if these stormtroopers are worried about federal buildings, then camp yourself by a federal building.
Yeah.
And when somebody approaches a federal building, then you do something about it then. But you really have no business if you're authentic with your stated goal of protecting federal buildings, then you should be huddled around federal buildings.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think today they've started erecting actual barriers, like concrete barriers. It's like, well, why does it take a week for that to happen if, in fact, you're there to protect federal buildings? But what you're really there to do, in my honest opinion, they're there because the administration knows there will be a confrontation, and because they're able to frame it as law and order versus madness.
Let me piggyback off what you just said. Because I think I'm always trying to look like a week or two into the future, and it's hard to say. If you try to predict what this administration is going to do, good luck on you, right? But
good luck, man.
But I did, and I know we're going to talk about the Chris Wallace interview a little bit later. But there have been some kind of talks or mentions from Trump and his insiders that suggest that this show of force is not just specific to Portland, but it could be another Democratic failing cities as well. And so I want to use this as an example, and again, I'm just throwing these questions out to y'all. Republicans love to they love to attempt to care about the city of Chicago and its people. Could you see a situation where Trump is sending in federal troops to his city of Chicago?
He's already threatened to.
Did he specifically mention Chicago?
He mentioned Chicago directly, and the mayor of Chicago vehemently said no, you better not. So the cities that he threatened are all democratically run cities. So again, it's a political thing. Like you're not threatening to invade Houston. You're not threatening to invade places where, and that is what it is. That's what it is. If state governors or if the mayors are asking for federal help, it's a different story. But it's very much a political tactic. But something that, again, if you had me ever agreeing with something that Rand Paul ever says, if you had that on your docket for 2020, salute, but I didn't have it. So he came out and said, and I'm only complimenting because I'm going to shit on him later, so it's okay. But he came out and said, we cannot sacrifice, liberty for security, which is the classic libertarian bullshit thing to say. But in this case, I agree with him. And then there's so many Democrats that are on Twitter and online today, yesterday, the day before, they're absolutely speaking out against the use of federal troops. But they, when it came to a committee, when the DHS budget actually came to a committee, Democrats are the ones that voted to approve a budget increase for the Department of Homeland Security. And this is after things started in Portland. So it's very much being framed as a one-party issue when in fact it's not that simple. So it's their job to come out and oppose Trump on this, who is absolutely wrong for deploying those troops there. Like the fact that they have the phrase the President's Rapid Deployment Unit or President's Rapid Deployment Teams, the fact that even exists is kind of scary for federal authorities to come in like that. But yeah, who would have thought that Rand Paul says something sensical and then Democrats that publicly denounce it, for anybody that doesn't get to see those committee votes, they would think, oh yeah, they're against the use of federal force. Well, you wrote the check for them to be able to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for anybody that thinks we're tough on Trump over here, we'll equally shit on Democrats as needed
at will. Yeah.
But I do think, again, it is interesting. It kind of goes back to our conversation last week when we were talking about those shared responsibilities between the state and the national government. And I just think it's really interesting to me that if you want to help out Oregon, I don't know, maybe send them some PPE or some ventilators, or maybe troops during the pandemic.
Sean, were you not listening? They're putting graffiti on buildings.
They're pointing laser pointers.
By the way, those things can actually do some legitimate damage to
some
human
laser
beings'
pointers.
eyes. Yes.
Additionally, another big shout out here is I feel like the states' rights people and the states' rights people and the gun owners, for sure, like gun enthusiasts are always,
this is going.
You know exactly where it's going. Like gun enthusiasts and states' rights people always, the narrative is always like, well, this is important because, like, in case the government oversteps its boundaries, in case the federal government becomes tyrannical. Fucking crickets at the moment.
This is your moment.
Yeah, this is your
Now's
moment.
Your time to shine.
Now's your time to shine.
Oh my God, I've been working my whole life for this.
Hop in the car, hop on the plane, get your ass to Portland, and
protect liberty.
Yeah, protect liberty, because at this point, middle-aged mothers are being tear gassed, and Navy veterans are being bludgeoned and pepper sprayed from point blank range. So it's like, I just find it ironic that when it comes to like, hey, my state is making me wear a goddamn face mask, or I can't go get a haircut, it's a huge deal. And like liberty is just there's this assault on liberty. But when it's actually happening and federal troops are being deployed to a city where your countrymen are trying to protest, then you don't say shit. I don't understand that.
On a much lighter note, I could use a haircut. As could all of us here.
Me too.
Well, I'm not getting one, man. I've almost made it past the in-between stage.
You're trying to cover up it's when the hair on your neck meets the hair on your back. Is that what you're trying to what you mean by the in-between stage?
There, damn it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, yeah.
You're such a hippie, you would feel right at home in Portland, by the way. You should have a Blazers jersey is what you should have.
For the record, yeah, Jim, I wanted to have a Portland Trailblazers jersey on today, and I thought I could find it and didn't, and so I went this direction. But I wanted to have the Portland one. That's been the bane of my existence today. I just couldn't find it.
Just one quick point. What you just said about this is those people's time to shine. The people who were afraid of government overreach and tyranny and all that stuff. If you're familiar with Occam's razor, I think you just sliced off everything that doesn't matter about this argument. What you fuckers should have done was jumped into Portland and done something about that, because that's the government overstepping their bounds.
Yeah.
And there you are sitting at home cheering it.
Well, and that's because of politics.
Responsible, or whose decision was it?
Trump's.
Your guy. Yeah.
And that's the thing, is when it comes down to it, people that say these things, they have no qualms with funding. What we'll talk about here in a bit. They have no problems with funding some of the largest, like most well-funded police forces and the single largest military in the world 10 times over. They have no problems funding that. Yet it's well, I have these guns and we have these states' rights to prevent a federal takeover, and say, well, you don't give a shit so long as it's a Republican administration that's sending them in. Yeah. But the fact that Democrats let that funding for the DHS go through committee with no problems, they're both culpable here. So they're not alone.
Well, we spent about 4 of those 15 minutes shitting on Trump, so I do want to kind of throw him a bone on here. And
what?
Yeah, well, come on, man, you got to find middle ground with these viewers, right? You can't forget where you're from. You live in Texas.
If he deserves something good being said about him, go ahead and say it.
Because there's not that much. So
we're getting into the Chris Wallace interview that a lot of us watched on Fox News. And it wasn't an easy interview at that, right? There were some tough questions coming at Trump. But just to throw him a small bone, if anything, they're trying to get some clarification on the mask thing again. And Trump kind of put his foot down, and he did say he went as far as saying wearing a mask is patriotic. What more could you do than to simply wear a mask? And I think for the Democrats and the left that are saying, well, it's a little, too little, too late. Shame on those people. It's not too late. Hate him or love him, he does have a lot of influence. He does have a huge following, and for him to make that point when he didn't have to, it does go a long way. And I'm glad that I can walk around my city and I see more and more people that are not fighting a mask mandate.
That's a great point, Sean.
Jim, are you gonna back him up here?
As it turns out, yeah. I mean, when the man, for all of his faults, what he knows is that he can influence people, and I think he saw. I can't envision a political motive to this, where he's trying to trick everybody. I think he saw the light in terms of, this is not a fight I really should be continuing to fight.
Yeah.
Well,
and neither should anybody else. So let's make it happen.
Well, while you guys are trying to give a tip of the hat to him, I think
Eeyore is coming in.
Well, I think the only reason why he posted that picture, the only reason why he fucking bothers to put on a mask, is because he's hemorrhaging votes because of the response to Corona. So I can't, like I said, I'm not going to say that it's awful that he promotes wearing a mask. So I'm not in that direction. I can't give you credit for doing something that you should have been doing since the beginning. And I can't give you credit for doing something only because it's politically advantageous now. You know what I mean? And so it's still a net. If he convinces hundreds of thousands of his little followers and his minions to wear masks, then it's an overall net positive. But it doesn't. Nothing he could do would endear him to me. But nothing makes me cheer for Trump in this case. But it is. If it gets people that were going to rallies a month ago with no masks and protesting to get a haircut with no mask, and now they wear a mask, I suppose it's a net positive.
All right. Well, drinking from that glass that's half empty, I guess I'll just move right along into the criticisms of kind of some points that we saw from that Wallace interview over there. I do just going back to Trump's following over here. I think a lot of people see when Trump is willing to sit down and take an interview with Wallace, who's historically a little bit left leaning, to my understanding. I think a lot of people watch that and they say, "Look at him. He's answering the tough questions. He's such a transparent." such a transparent leader. Guys, if you sat down and asked me questions about like rocket science or space exploration, something I don't know nothing of, and I just bullshitted you for 15 minutes, that is not an example of transparency. That is me talking out of my ass.
No, it's
and
you saying everything that you know.
that's what I see. Like, let's not. That's kind of the point I'm making. Is let's not confuse the two. Let's not confuse his intelligence with transparency. You put a mic in front of him, he's going to talk, man. He's an entertainer. That's what he does, right? But that was kind of one of my big takeaways from that interview there.
Jim, what was your take on it? I know you watched it. I want to know opinions of Chris Wallace from you.
Ooh.
But what'd you take from it?
Well, it's not the kind of thing that I ordinarily watch all of, because I just can't do it.
Can't make it through.
I can't bring myself to do it, but I did.
Yeah.
I forced myself to do it, and I'm glad I did. Chris Wallace, he got a lot of credit. It was on YouTube, and he got a lot of credit, or what I watched was on YouTube, and in the comments on YouTube, he got a lot of credit for being like a totally objective journalist and asking the tough questions, but being totally fair. And he really wasn't. That interview was intended to make Trump look bad.
Yeah.
Which you don't have to try super hard to do, but coming from a pundit on Fox News, I get what you're saying completely. Like that, my takeaway from it was similar. It's like he didn't let him squirm away like so many people do,
right,
and kind of said, well, no, that's not true. And then also, I think he said that Biden directly wants to defund the police, and he said he did. No, that wasn't said at all. And like Trump even had them bring in a transcript and couldn't find it.
Couldn't find evidence. He was challenging some COVID claims that Chris Wallace had made, and he couldn't find evidence of that, or the evidence that he found was actually faulty.
So I mean that's also a net positive for it to come from, and and only in America could Chris Wallace be seen as being any notion of liberal at all. But he's
comparatively speaking, on Fox,
he's the most moderate of the psychopaths on Fox.
All right, let's say it that way.
Great way to put it.
Yeah, and so kind of on that note, like it's like if we're talking about like Biden wouldn't ever utter those words, defund the police, ever, and it's like only in America could Biden ever be like skewed, like slandered as being like left at anything. Like he's barely a Democrat by Democratic standards.
Yeah.
And on that note, it kind of pushes to our next thing. Like for the Democratic National Convention, John Kasich, the Republican from Ohio, is supposed to speak on Biden's behalf at the convention. So if
who saw that coming?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you say. Go ahead.
Again, 2020 strikes again.
Yeah.
But to if I had to say one thing to viewers that are remotely interested in politics, like if you needed another, like on top of the other 1,000 examples of how the Democratic Party is not actually left, here you go. There's a more prominent, like a guy that literally ran in the primary against Trump in 2016 is speaking on behalf, not speaking, not anything like, not just there to speak. He's speaking on behalf of the Democratic candidate for president.
Yeah, I didn't have my money on John Kasich. I was actually thinking it'd be Chris Christie, but I heard he's somewhere on a closed beach during the pandemic. For those of y'all that know what
I'm so angry that he's a Cowboys fan. Like that always comes to my mind, that he's like pals with Jerry Jones. I always get pissed off about that.
If there's one thing that we know in 2020, it's you can't really know anything for sure, right? What I would be really interested if John McCain was still alive, because Mitt Romney has came out, and Mitt Romney's more than likely not voting for Donald Trump. But if John McCain was still alive, what do you think? Because to me, I think he would kind of be the leading voice of the Republican Party, and kind of trying to try to acknowledge the fact that they're kind of selling themselves short with Donald Trump today.
He and Mitt Romney would be in Joe Biden's cabinet. Yeah, it's not far-fetched.
Very possible.
It's really not.
And kind of, guys, on this on our next political note, I think in the Chris Wallace interview, but also a few other times, our fearless leader has said when the question's been posed, if you lose in November, and that question's become more and more common, as it just because things are bad, but also because we're moving closer to the election, so it's normal. When the question's been posed, if you lose in November, will you leave office? Like, will you leave office peacefully? Like, basically, a question that's never really had to been asked before.
Right.
I don't think. The days of George Bush leaving a well-wishing letter to Clinton, in the Oval Office, like those days are done. So, to say the least, those days are done.
The rift is
Yeah,
or the-
and so
yeah.
well, how does that make you feel to live in a country where a sitting president's kind of with many armed, aggressively fervent supporters says on national television that he can't say whether or not he'll leave office after losing an election?
Well, I think Chris Wallace dropped the ball a little bit on that portion of the interview because he sort of left Trump off the hook by including within that question, would you go would you go peacefully or would you go gracefully? I think is how he phrased it.
Yeah.
And Trump said, well, I don't think I would because I don't like to lose. So he changed the narrative from I wouldn't go peacefully to I just don't like to lose. So no, it wouldn't be easy for me and I wouldn't like it and I wouldn't be happy with it. So that his supporters are going to say that's all he meant by that.
Yeah, whenever I hear talks of Trump staying in office past his time, like I've seen memes, I've even seen shirts that have been printed where it was like Donald Trump 2020, Trump 2024, 2028, and like
easy Putin.
it's just
How disturbing is that?
it's not funny at all to me. It's not funny at all. Well,
maybe they're assuming that he's going to lose in 2020 and come back and run again in 2024 when he's 206.
I'm not sure about that, but it's just, again, it's not anything to take lightly at all. Considering his character, his personality, if you're comparing him to other historical authoritative figures, you're going to see a lot of alarming similarities. And so for somebody that has a record of intimidating the free press, to come out and say, I'm not sure if I would walk away, if the results don't end in my favor. To me, it's alarming, certainly.
Right. He's in my opinion, he's gearing up for that. And so I don't foresee Trump, if he loses in November, I don't foresee him at the front of anything leading some rebel army or something like that. But the damage is happening now because he's sowing those seeds. And again, some of his supporters are very volatile personalities. They're people that, not that owning guns is bad, but it's like they won't have any problem if he says, hey, this election's a fraud or something like that. And he's hinted at mail fraud, a mail-in ballot fraud already.
Hinted?
Yeah. He's
hinted. He's overtly stated it will definitely be.
Yeah.
And so to me, as an athlete, that's somebody that's prepared, that's talking about losing before they actually lose, before they actually play. And so he's gearing up for this defeat, but he's sowing seeds with his followers. And that's what worries me, is that if he loses and then on his way out says more inflammatory shit, a lot of these people are less predictable. Like Trump's rich. So if he loses, he can go back to,
I'm rich.
Yeah, he's rich. He doesn't give a shit. Like he'll leave. And again, he's not going to be any sort of leader past this, but the damage that he's doing now is what worries me. Like he's sowing some seeds that very much could result in violence in after November.
For sure, absolutely. And I think, and this is definitely a conversation for a different podcast as we approach November. But the simple fact that our democracy is in a state where it's that vulnerable is telling in itself. Where regardless of who wins, of wherever the outcome goes, that it's going to be a contested election. Like we've already seen the stage set for that. This isn't going to be I don't foresee it at all being your typical run of the mill. Hey, the voters came out, they spoke, they chose, and they've decided. These things, it's going to be contested for quite some time. Like it's not going to be over when the dust settles November 4th.
Well, and if the Democrats lose, it'll be like Russia or somebody else's fault. So it's just it's the most vulnerable we've ever been, and at this point, it's kind of like, wow. How lucky have we been to only have one revolution all this time?
I do have a quick question for you guys. From the breaking news perspective. Just recently, very recently, the Chinese consulate in Houston was closed That I guess there was a fire in the courtyard with a bunch of documents being burned, and then Trump ordered them all to leave because he fears
Espionage.
some espionage. What are your thoughts on that? Knowing only that much, do you think that was a bad on just your gut reaction? Do you think that was probably a bad decision because Trump made it, or do you think have you given it any more thought?
I'm going. What are we? We're about half an hour into our podcast. I'm going to Steve Kerr this, our first sports reference. I'm going to Steve Kerr this answer and say, Jim, I don't know enough yet to give an opinion.
I love it. I love it. Don't bullshit me.
I was reading about this earlier, man, and I mean, like, if it's legitimate claims of espionage, then you're entitled to do what you feel you need to do to protect American interests. Like, that's literally your job. But also, it could just be, it could be another one of these dumbass flexes and distractions and things that he's known for doing. And, in the midst of a global pandemic and a recession and all these things, why not throw gas on the fire with a potential conflict with your largest trade partner? Like, why, if you're Trump, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. I mean, those things are kept fairly confidential, but it is a bit sketch for them to be burning documents.
Definitely,
Yeah. It's a bit sketch, but it's just more to come in 2020 of Chinese American tensions when things are already bad enough.
True enough, and it's way too fresh a crime scene, I guess, for want of a better phrase, to really make any conclusions or draw any conclusions about it. But my first instinct is, first of all, Trump haters are going to say, "What the fuck did he do that for? That was the wrong thing to do," just out of instinct, because they're so used to it, because that's usually the right response. I'm not convinced at this point, again with a fresh crime scene, that he didn't do the right thing.
Well, and I mean, out of all the decisions that you make in 4 years as president, as much as I dislike the guy, as much as I hate the guy.
Oh, wow.
How many? I mean, you're bound to be right at least once or twice in all those decisions. So, I mean, maybe this is one of the right ones. We don't know yet. But yeah, it's a fair question.
And by the way, he announced as such in that Chris Wallace interview. He said, "I'm going to be right eventually when coronavirus goes away."
Yeah.
It just disappears.
I told you it would go away.
I told you.
And look, here we are, only 4 short years later, and it's gone.
I told you it would go away at the end of the summer, but I didn't say which summer.
Which summer? Yeah. By the way, he said those were other people that said that in that interview. He said, "You remember they said it was going to die in the summer? It was going to go away in the summer because of the heat. You remember they said that?" That was you.
But yeah, so the last thing on the political docket that we've got here, this is what for you guys listening and watching, this is, if I get animated, I don't know. If I get animated, it's because I feel strongly about this one. But
don't hit me.
Yeah, for the first time in decades, there was an amendment put forth to a vote in both the House and the Senate it's called the Pocan Amendment. It's to cut the Pentagon budget. It's a proposal to cut the Pentagon's budget for defense by 10%. So by far the world's largest military budget.
Not even close.
Yeah, not even close. Like we spend more than the next 11 nations combined, 9 of which are allies, on defense. So the House overwhelmingly voted against it, so that's a Democratic majority that beat it. It was beat by over 200 votes. It was not close. And then in the Senate, it was introduced by Senator Sanders, and it also lost by about 50. So it's very much a bipartisan thing. So obviously, every single Republican in both houses, I believe, voted against it, but a significant number of Democrats killed it in the House, and then in the Senate, I think it was still surprising to me to see even 22 votes for it. I think 10 years ago that wouldn't happen. But Bernie's proposal was meant to take that 10% and invest it into social programs, namely healthcare, which maybe during a pandemic would be useful. But what are you guys' first takes just in general on military spending now under the Trump administration, and whether or not you would support the Pocan Amendment to cut this 10%?
I'll be really short here. What I hope a lot of voters look at here is simply like we're gonna have a second stimulus package come out in response to COVID. And what I really hope people are looking at here, people that are going to be voting come November, is not only the shortcomings of the first stimulus package that was put out, and you see that with the need for a second one, but it kind of seeing what these lawmakers and these congressmen and women, where their priorities lie. They're not with working Americans, and it's been clear from the beginning. Their priorities are going to lie within this defense budget for a war that we're not even in right now. When I think that money could be reinvested back into the communities, and providing more to these small business owners and workers. A lot of people are going to be forced to make a decision pretty soon when school starts back up, if it does in person or not. But people are already seeing these decisions as far as I can't provide childcare, even elder care for other people that need to go back. Maybe their parent, their elder caught COVID or something. These are actual problems that Americans are facing, and instead of investing into working class Americans, we're continuously going to prop up this military for whatever reason. And so I just kind of hope that people consider it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to influence you. Just consider it. Think about it. Is that where your priorities? Does that match your own priorities?
Jimmer?
First and foremost, I will tell you, and this might not rub you the right way.
Sweet.
I am absolutely in favor of the United States having far and away the most powerful military in the world. I am absolutely in favor of making sure that happens.
Okay.
That being said, we do.
By a long shot.
By a very, very long shot. So if we cut the defense budget by 10%, does that leave our military destitute?
Yeah.
There is a lot of fat out there that can be cut. And Donald Trump keeps talking about, hey, you don't need to spend all that on that, and you don't need to spend all that on that. Look at the military, and you don't need to spend all that on that. You can accomplish the same goal, having the most powerful military in the world, even if you have 10% less in your budget, because that still leaves your budget absolutely colossal. If you can't make that work, then that's on you.
Well, and that's my issue. Is it's like, I don't think you'll ever win over a huge part of the population, and for sure not politicians that take money related to military industrial complex. But it's like, again, with the massive, I think 735 billion is what it is, the massive military spending that we have, you could cut 10% of that and it still dwarfs the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And so
definitely,
I challenge you guys. Like, this is a lot of this is public knowledge. You can go online and find it easily on government websites. But it's like, go and see the list of countries that spend more of your tax dollars or more of its public's tax dollars on military spending and defense than they do healthcare and education combined, and every other thing combined. And you won't like that list. That's going to be Russia. That's going to be North Korea, Iran, Syria, places like that.
The U.S.
China.
military is the biggest social program in the world, man, providing health care to every single one of its
And
members.
jobs.
Well, no, if you
jobs, housing. I mean, we could argue it if you want, but that's just where I stand.
Well, no,
for those that are against social, like it's the biggest social program in the world.
Well, no, if you provide that for your citizens, though, then that's why they're so against it, because now there's no more incentives for poor people to join the military, is there?
Exactly. Something that kind of brought up, I just thought about it. Did Boeing receive a large portion of the first stimulus package? These guys are double dipping, man. Right? Not only are they
But
awarded
Sean,
the largest contract.
Sean, that would be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think you're accurate about that. That would be wrong.
It's probably another fake news, right? More misinformation here.
Most likely. Real quick, I do have to say that it's really not at all surprising that the votes went the way they did, because you remember that there's a military installation in every state.
Yeah. So
these people have
in their
constituents
districts,
that they have to answer to, and if they're the ones who say that or who voted against it, and then the 10% comes out of the naval base in West Virginia, landlocked West Virginia, the naval base in landlocked West Virginia that 50-year Congressman Robert Byrd managed to get in there, then they're going to have to answer to that, and they know that, so they're not voting against that. or they're not voting for that amendment.
Yeah.
Well, no, and that's the issue. So, like, again, for people that represent those states and those areas and those districts, as far as the House is concerned, yeah, but it's also not surprising, because when you look at military lobbies, people that profit from war. So I don't want to use the, it's euphemistic to say that it's a military lobby. They're war profiteers, defense industry profiteers. The people that receive the most money on both sides of the aisle. So you can predict that the Republicans are going to vote against anything that cuts any military budget. You could cut that 10% and it would still be significantly higher than it was when Obama left office. Right? So the people on the other side, on the Democratic side, the ones that receive, I think the median contribution was like 30 grand in campaign contributions from defense industries. Those are the ones that voted against it. The median contribution from the defense industry to those that voted nay is about $8K or below. So it's very much pay to play, and it's again, it's not there. The interest of the American people is not there. It's how can I stay in office? How can I continue this shit? And we were talking about Rand Paul earlier. I owe him one. This is the guy that's Mr. Libertarian that always talks about, like, we have to stop these endless wars and frivolous spending on endless wars. And it's like, oh, well, bitch, here was your chance. And you voted no to cut military spending that will undoubtedly lead to more entanglements abroad.
Well, yeah, but
that's yeah, guys. We'll transition here, but I just think that's something that's not common knowledge to the average American, right? Is that when you look at a pie chart, that's the easiest way to get it across to somebody.
Holy crap.
When you look at a pie chart of discretionary spending from U.S. taxpayer dollars, with this military budget that is now intact, 53, close to 54% of that money is going to defense and going to military spending. That's more than on healthcare and education and every other social program combined. Is that moral? Is that representative of the American people? Does that serve the American people? Well, I think if you took a straw poll, I think the answer to that would be no.
Possibly, but you do have to consider, once again, remember that, like I said, I'm in favor of us having the most powerful military in the world, and we don't have a lot of problems that we could have if we didn't have that powerful.
So the Chinese spent 183 billion last year, so we outspent them by almost 5 times.
Okay.
So right now, a 10% cut, I don't think is that.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that. But
I'm just saying, what could we do with that money? So if you do maintain military dominance, you do maintain economic dominance. So right now, it's the richest, most powerful country that's ever existed in the history of countries. Why don't the people see more of that? Why is the middle class life in America not so dissimilar from the middle class life in European countries that our economy and our military dwarfs? It's like, well, it's because 54% of that discretionary spending doesn't come back to the people. It goes to the causes of empire. And so my point is that you could still very much have that empire, and everyone could be relatively happy. The only people that won't be happy are those that see their profits at home affected by that. So you could still have this vast reaching war machine, if that's what they really need. You could still have that, but life for working class people here could be a lot better if you adjusted.
Well, potentially, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but
I don't mind.
The people, the middle class here, are all in debt to be middle class.
That's correct.
The middle class in Europe, I don't know if that's true. I'm not
No,
going to say yes or no. It might not.
They don't.
If it is true, then
Are you taking
those people would
taking a shot at me, Jim?
No,
That's right.
People over there would ask, "What's a credit score? What the fuck is that?"
Bringing up my student loans, Jim?
Well, yeah, man. I just talking about our gross misallocation of taxpayer dollars to defense. I always got to put that in quotes. Is painful. If you have pain, like people all over the country have been feeling, if you have pain, man, go to Natural Heights, get all your CBD stuff from there. If you so choose, they're at 1880 Nacogdoches Road here in San Antonio. There, you can also call ahead because hours are a little bit weird these days. You can catch them at 210-592-1060. CBD, man, get over there's no stigma anymore. Just go get it. But that helps us move on here to sports.
Balls.
There we go. I was hoping you guys would follow up with that. That's a new thing we're doing. It's from trivia.
We're saying balls.
Yeah. Every time. Every time. So
Geography.
I can't stress enough how much I don't care about the sport itself. But MLB started back up with exhibitions for baseball, and multiple players on all the teams that I saw that were playing anyways took a knee. Not the entire squads or anything, but I mean a significant number of players took knees. And the first ever female coach on the field, I guess, was there for the Giants. And I feel like half of baseball's normal fan base, just their head just exploded whenever those two things happened.
So MLB had an opening day? Is that?
No, it's not official. It's the exhibitions beforehand.
Oh, okay. I was going to say,
But opening day is tomorrow.
I'm not sure what I miss more of, WNBA finals or MLB opening days. And again, like if you're listening to this podcast wanting an update on baseball,
Sorry.
I couldn't.
Sorry about it.
It's probably not going to happen.
I couldn't give you one. I'm kind of more interested. Are there going to be some Vegas odds on Fauci's on his opening pitch? Like, are there going to be some bets on that thing?
I don't think it goes over 36 miles an hour.
Jim, what do you think?
It's not going over 30.
Is it going over the plate? Dr. Fauci?
No. It's getting some grass, I think.
Okay, how many bounces before is that a real bet in Vegas? How many bounces before it
not
crosses
in
the plate?
Vegas, but you can bet on literally anything in London.
In London?
Yes.
Yeah.
In
Jesus.
London, they will take a bet on how long my fart is.
Yeah, so I mean, I gotta. I don't think, maybe not 36, and it might be like a rainbow. I don't think it definitely doesn't go straight to mitt
No,
for sure.
I couldn't bet on that.
Half the country will write it off, and then the other half of the country will be like, you pussy, like, you stupid liberal.
This is the guy
You
that's
stupid doctor. I'm supposed to trust this guy on my health. He can't even throw a pitch.
Can't even throw a spitter.
He can't even throw a spitter. But yeah, I mean, and then onward to, in my opinion, more entertaining sports. The NBA is back up. We made it. We officially
had some scrimmages today, right?
Couple scrimmages, man, and then they've got those for the next 2 days. The first two days they're playing 4 10-minute quarters, so like a 40-minute game like you would see in Europe, and then progressing into the full 48.
Wait, those are going to be actual games, 40-minute games?
Yeah, they're scrimmages. They just don't count for anything.
Okay, all right, scrimmages still.
And so that's the 22nd through the 24th, and then the play-in game, the seeding games begin.
Did y'all? I don't know if y'all caught any of the scrimmages today. I know both of y'all have full-time jobs and families and all that stuff. But if you look at their bench, just the bench looks strange. Those guys, they're like staggered out. They come off from playing, full court defense, and you go sit on the bench 6 feet away from your teammate and your coaches. Even the coaching staff is like, you're almost like an empty movie theater seating where you have to kind of look back.
It's a bit weird, right?
Did y'all see that? Do you want to change defenses?
Almost seat in between you.
Yeah.
It was absolutely strange, but man, I'm excited for basketball to come back. I know that just over here in San Antonio, I'm going to root for San Antonio. I found out that I was a bigger Tim Duncan fan than I actually am a Spurs fan. But they are in the race for an 8th seed playoff. I think it's the Spurs, the Pelicans, the Kings, the Blazers,
and the Suns, I believe.
And the Suns, yeah.
What's a home playoff game for the Blazers going to look like?
Oof.
Well, I mean, what would it look like?
No, well, they can't.
But for the bubble situation,
yeah,
that would be awesome just to see that whole building.
Oh man,
burn.
Shit. So, yeah, man, I think we heard earlier from a friend who is connected with the Spurs organization that the teams that are trying to compete for that 8th spot are kind of at a lesser hotel, like away from the elite teams, and San Antonio is in that group. And I guess Pop is supposedly he's using that as motivation, but saying like, hey, let's fuck up their logistics and get moved, make them move us.
I mean, it's Disney World. How shitty could your hotel be? right? It's the happiest
That's-
place in the world.
That's
Guy-
kind of a
guy-
funny comment. Yeah,
yeah,
it's the
guy-
worst hotel.
Yeah, well, guys have been complaining about it, and then a couple other players like Steven Adams and a few other guys were like, "Hey, like, look, we're in a resort. It's fine. Like,
Yeah,
other than a bit dry food, like, we're fine."
That's like staying in a guest house of a $1 million mansion. Like,
I went to
you're all
prom
right.
with the ugliest playmate of that year.
Yeah. And other NBA news, it just got announced the Jordan brand is going to be the official sponsor on all the jerseys next year. So I thought that was kind of hilarious that
That is fantastic.
yeah.
If you're a Pistons fan,
So for Pistons, Pacers, and Knicks fans especially to have
Utah Jazz,
yeah, Utah Jazz for you to
Brian Russell,
for you to
poor
have
bastard.
if you have hey, if you buy a replica jersey of those guys, it's gonna have the jump man. So I'm gonna try to find an Isaiah Thomas joint with the Jordan jump man on it. That would be great.
I
But
like that.
I thought that was just kind of it's business, money talks, but it's just kind of a slap in the face for those
Oh,
fan
yeah.
bases. Holy shit.
Absolutely.
And then past that, man, we're getting down to it here. We're getting down to our closing remarks. What would you? We're not closing remarks. We've got our guilty pleasures. So we
Guilty
know
pleasures.
the quarantine period, which really isn't a thing, hasn't been a thing recently in Texas, Florida, Arizona, and any other hellscapes that have exploded with Corona. But during this time, we've had a chance to, I guess, find new hobbies, occupations, interests, things like that. What are some guilty ones that kind of we would probably rightfully laugh at you for, and that maybe the viewers would laugh at you for, that you've picked up that you have to say is still a pleasure?
Yeah, hey man, I would love for sports to be back and to sit here and criticize LeBron's on-ball defense, but it's not here yet, right? So we have to sit here and talk about our guilty pleasures. So I'll just kind of kick things off and just get this off my chest, guys, and let y'all know. At night, when
Uh-oh.
right
I like the way this started.
Yeah.
Ooh,
at
I
night,
used to think these stories were all
as-
fake.
saucy.
as I lay in bed.
Tell me more.
You can typically find me watching some murder mysteries.
Oh my God,
I am,
my mom would be very proud of you.
Yeah, I've seen them all. I'm caught up.
Shout out,
Yeah.
mom, by the way.
I've watched damn near every murder mystery that you can find. The network is
Wow.
called ID, Investigative
Oh my
Discovery.
God, I know. Oh my
If
God,
yeah, listen, if I don't reply to a phone call or a text message immediately,
it's because of ID.
it's because there's a murder plot thickening,
There's some.
and I'm into it. Okay.
You'll watch murder shit, but you didn't watch Tiger King.
I didn't watch Tiger King.
This guy.
I-
Well, hang
I
on
admit
now.
that.
I watched 2 episodes of Tiger King, and
You had to
I
tap
was
out?
Done.
Hey, guys,
Okay.
I see murders now. Like when a murder hits the news, I'm like, damn, that's gonna be a good show.
You're trying to
like,
pick it.
yeah.
You're trying to pick it apart already.
I feel
huh?
bad. Yeah, I feel bad. Like in my head, I'm like, yeah, I know it was the boyfriend that did it, right?
Oh, that guy.
But it doesn't mean shit to me until it hits ID.
Yeah.
And so it's sad that I find pleasure in other people's pain. But it is a guilty pleasure of mine. It is what it is.
Okay, Jim, what do you got, man?
Well, I have an 11-year-old daughter, and
Nice.
during my time where I had to stay at home, I learned that she enjoys watching some YouTube videos by some people who what they do is they open toys and they look at those toys and they play with those toys and they describe those toys, and I don't know what these toys are, so I'm like, find myself. I've got my iPad, so I've got plausible denial. I'm looking at my serious stuff here. Don't look at me. I'm.
This is like
I find myself.
it's like a consumer guide.
You've been watching a toy show.
I've been toy shows. This one person, people send them their I don't know, squishy toys that have been somehow fucked up, and they want her to refurbish them. And she goes, "Oh, here's what I'll do with this." And she goes through this whole rigmarole of what she's going to do these things, and I'm like, I wonder what there's no way she's fixing that thing. Oh my God, look what she did.
She, not bad.
Yeah.
Justin,
So-
what do you got, man?
Ah,
Guilty
man.
pleasure? What do
Oh,
you-
I also like pineapple on pizza.
oh.
That's almost inflammatory. I mean, we might have
right
just
here.
lost half of our modest viewing right
Fight
now.
me.
Just with
It
that.
doesn't
Yeah.
bother me. It doesn't bother me.
Oh,
yeah.
It's something.
I'm not in favor, but I'm not like vehemently
Yeah.
opposed. Yeah. For me, man, shit. I guess we've been kind of making some at the house, kind of like making, I feel it just feels really strange to say. Like I never imagined that we would be a group of friends that make like beef jerky or like dried fruits. We have a dehydrator at the house.
Okay.
And so it's like something like that, but like I never in a million years imagined it'd be like, yeah, like we make our own beef jerky. Like it's not.
Do y'all explore different meats and
Yeah,
flavors,
no,
or what do you-
my roommate Carlos has actually been like really experimenting with it. So like I helped out a bit and supplied some stuff and everything, but he's really gotten into it, and now I'm kind of being drawn in. I'm like, oh man, how'd that turn out? And it's just very strange because I didn't imagine ever.
I got this exotic meat I'm trying to dry up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're gonna try out some really exotic stuff and see where it goes, and maybe I'll be hiking a trail and have some dehydrated, dried bananas and strawberries and
Ooh.
apricots.
I like that a lot. That's
Yeah.
well, I got another one I got to share.
Let's hear it.
And it's not anything that came up during the quarantine. It's kind of been around. I haven't been late on it. It was there since the very beginning. But it's just something that I have to get off my chest.
Oof, let's hear
Yeah,
that.
It's weighing heavy on me. And I just feel like it's a true underdog story. It doesn't get enough credit, but the soundtrack to A Star Is Born, Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga,
Damn,
Okay.
that shit is fire.
it really is a guilty. I don't.
It's guilty
I
as
can't
shit.
speak on the pleasure part. But that really
No,
is
it's-
guilty.
It's up there, man. It strikes some chords. It's amazing. It's
Well,
it's
I
a
haven't-
masterpiece.
I didn't see that one. I didn't see the original, and I haven't heard the soundtrack. But apparently, I'm going to have to get involved because if you're out here
It's beautiful.
pronouncing,
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, guys, if you look at my Spotify, you're gonna find some Lil Boozy, maybe some Young Thug, but there's gonna be a little bit of Ed Sheeran. There'll be some Sam Smith,
Nice.
and there'll also
you've
be
got feelings.
there'll also be a Star Is Born playlist.
Okay.
It's there.
Jim, do you have another one or no?
Well, I mean, not.
The toy thing was huge.
It's not as dramatic as.
Yeah, the
as-
toy thing was huge though.
Well, and yeah. Well, there you go. Now you know. Now you know who you're dealing with. I'm also a closet ABBA fan.
Oh
Oh,
shit!
shit.
The entire Swedish following just applauded you.
So that guy is on board.
That one guy, we got him.
Yeah.
Good job, man.
Thanks, pal. Thanks.
Shout out,
Sven.
shout out Sweden.
Finn.
Yeah, dude, my last one, and part of this is I don't know, man. Part of it's just because I'm kind of weird, and the other part of it is I take a guilty pleasure in it. I'm never gonna download TikTok. I'm sorry, like I'm too old for that. I'm a guy. It's not my thing.
I barely got onto Twitter. Now that
Yeah,
now that you
yeah.
bring
Like
that
I
up,
can't.
you forced me to get
I
into it.
don't know my way around TikTok. I'll never have the app, but I have been flooding my mom and my sister's text messages with like random videos of me like singing in the car, or just in my room, like I've really prepared it. And then there's a very weird radio station that sometimes plays like old folk music, like really weird. And I'll be driving around the car and kind of record that. I try to send them the weirdest fucking
Dude,
videos possible.
You could be driving around the car, TikToking yourself, singing a Star Is Born song, eating pineapple pizza, and you could hit all of our guilty pleasures at the same damn time, man. What an idea.
Wow. Well, yeah, man. I just
Justin gave me an idea. I'm gonna start singing in the car and videotaping myself and then sending it to people.
yeah. I just
I'll send it to you
that's
guys.
the boredom has really reached that
For
level.
for
So I
sure.
would still do the occasional weird thing, but it's like now I that's how I communicate with my family sometimes. But
I want you to start singing songs that you've never heard before.
oh, shit.
Singing along with them.
Okay.
Tune
Well-
into a radio station that you don't ordinarily listen to, and then sing along. Send that.
Well, we're getting towards the end here, guys. Final remarks, Jim. I'll lead off with you.
You know what? I'm actually, like I said, I'm going to be on vacation next week, and I don't know. I like doing this.
I thought you were going to be promoting your mixtape. But
I'll be doing that when I get back
okay,
after I
my-
make the
oh,
mixtape because
got
I don't
it.
know if it's going to be worth a shit.
nice.
Yeah, I got to know it first.
You know, Final thoughts for me, just kind of, I'll just take it back and end with some family stuff. I know there's a lot of bad stuff going on in the pandemic. People are, they've been out of job with unemployment, or maybe they've actually caught COVID themselves and are kind of, maybe they've lost a loved one. But there are some positive things in here if you look for them. We've been having a great routine with my 12-year-old daughter. I feel like next summer, I'm hoping that all this stuff clears up. But I feel like once you get 13, you're kind of too cool for your parents at that age.
Yeah. So enjoy this shit now,
dude,
Sean.
I'm really
enjoy it now.
enjoying this time with her. And so all this stuff's it's been awesome. And so I just kind of appeal to other people to kind of just, I know it's hard, but try to find the positives in these moments, man.
Shout out Aaliyah, by the way. Well, yeah, man. Finally, I just want to thank you guys again for watching and listening. Like, share, subscribe. It's not hard, and it would help us out, but we really appreciate you. And I think to kind of balance Sean's optimism and positivity with some negativity, and
Thank God.
and with the end of some optimism at the end. So far in 2020, man, we've had the pandemic of 1918. We are very close to the economy of 1929. God, we've awoken the fascists of the 30s. They're coming along. We've had the racial riots similar to 1968 and the 60s in general. Now all we need is the 1974 resignation. So we've almost completed the cycle. Just hang in there a little bit longer, and we might be able to get through it. But thank you guys again, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.